Howdy everybody. Mindfulness. I've referred to it as the pocket knife of wellness in large part because it kind of fits all occasions. It kind of helps with all sorts of stuff. Just like a pocket knife, has the knife and the screwdriver and the bottle opener. It kind of applies in all situations. When we think about mindfulness as a practice, it does enhance our emotional wellness, our intellectual wellness, our spiritual wellness, as well as our physical wellness. And so in a similar way to a pocket knife, mindfulness kind of applies to lots of things. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what mindfulness is, why it's important, and even suggest some practices that you might experiment with. Now, before I get started, I want to share a little personal anecdote that when I was in counseling years ago as a client, I remember meeting with them and them saying, "Travis, mindfulness is really helpful. Have you tried that out?" And each week they would bring up mindfulness, and each week I would say, "No, I don't need to do that. I don't need to slow down. I need to speed up. I need to speed up. I need to do more." And after a period of time, I finally gave in and I started to practice some mindfulness techniques. And I found that, gosh, this is really helpful. But it can be hard to slow down. And hopefully we'll address a little of that in this video. We see the term mindfulness come up in a lot of different areas, but we don't talk a lot about what it actually means. And there are many different definitions, but in general, we think about wellness as being fully aware of whatever's happening at the present moment and accepting that without judgment. But essentially, we're observing, watching, without judging what's going on in our thoughts, what's going on in our emotions, what's going on with our physical sensations, as well as any other sensory perceptions that we might be having. That we work to notice them, maybe describe them, and be present for them. Because similar to the challenge that I experience, so many other people in our society are busy. We're always busy, busy, busy. We're busy thinking. And oftentimes, this busyness thinking can be rehearsing something for the future. We're planning, we're thinking about what's going to happen and what are we going to do in that situation. We are rehashing. We're looking to the past and thinking about, oh, well, this thing happened. What should I have done? Oh, I did this wrong. And we're kind of poring over it and working it through. With rehearsing, moving into the future, or rehashing, moving into the past, we're really pulling ourselves out of the present moment. And in that way, we're spending very little time with what exists here and now. Because many of the difficulties that we experience, many of the fears that we have, many of the sadnesses that we carry, they don't actually exist right now. And so if we can get present, then sometimes that can start to release. We're also busy rushing, doing things. We're always doing things on the run. Having lunch on the run, checking in on a phone call on the run, moving to the next thing, the next activity, go, go, go. And if we have any downtime, pull out our phone, check in, check email, check the messages, scroll through the feeds in order to check in with things, keep up on stuff. We're always, always rushing, rushing, rushing. And again, similar to our busy thoughts, that busy action pulls us out of the present. What's present for me here in this room right now is different than what's present on a phone, what's present on social media, what's present in a video. What's present for me right now is different than what's present for you right now. And this busyness also leads to a lot of judging, a lot of evaluating, that we're constantly judging the information that we're receiving, the experiences that we're having, the people we're interacting with. And we do this for a lot of different reasons. In part, we're trying to assess what's going on, trying to understand and make sense of things. We're also judging ourselves ceaselessly, evaluating what we're going through, evaluating what's coming up for us, evaluating what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling. Is this okay? Is it not okay? And in that way, we're spending very little time just being present with what is there. And so mindfulness ultimately pulls us into the present, challenges us to be here and now, to withhold evaluation or judging. It brings us into the present, that we're not rehashing or rehearsing, we're not rushing around, we're not evaluating or judging, we're just being here. And here in the present moment, most problems don't exist. Those problems may exist in the future, things that we're worried about. They may exist in the past, things that we regret. But right here and now, if we're present, for what is existing, things are usually kind of okay. And there's been a multitude of research studies about the impact of mindfulness. And if you look at something like mindfulness-based stress reduction, there's a whole program that has significant amounts of support for the impact that can have on people's overall well-being. And here we're going to talk about what it decreases and increases. So it decreases that sense of worry, that stress, that sadness that we might experience. It decreases or is negatively correlated with symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder or borderline personality disorder, or even addiction symptoms, as well as a multitude of other presenting concerns that people come to counselors to talk about. In addition to decreasing, we think about what it increases. So some of the good stuff that comes with this. That we tend to feel more relaxed. We tend to have a greater sense of empathy towards others, and even ourselves, more self-compassion, an increase in our positive affect, and an overall improvement in our quality of life. And so mindfulness practices can be very beneficial to our well-being. And I want to make sure that I put this little caveat in here that mindfulness, while very helpful, is not a replacement for counseling. It can be a wonderful adjunct, an addition to our overall mental health work. And so what I'm going to suggest here are some experiments, and I encourage you to give them a shot. See what works for you. Try them on for size. The first one is to focus on your breathing. And in this activity, we just find ourselves in a comfortable position. It could be sitting, it could be laying down. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Close your eyes and just focus on breathing. There's no need to control our breath or to focus on breathing in a particular way. Just notice it. Being present, coming in, and going out. And if our mind wanders and we start thinking about other things, that's perfectly okay. We can just acknowledge where our thoughts went and then focus it back on the breath. This type of activity can be really helpful to engage in at some point in time during the day. Maybe we wake up and we do some mindful breathing. Maybe we take lunch, we do some mindful breathing. Maybe we finish up our job for the day and we do some mindful breathing. Whenever it may occur in our schedule, it can be a helpful practice to get into. Mindful meditation is very similar to the breathing exercise. We want to get into a comfortable position, set a timer for maybe 5 minutes, and then sit quietly and notice our thoughts, notice our feelings, and our physical sensations. Maybe even just checking in with those different parts, just noticing what's present for us, without judging. That as these thoughts or these feelings or these sensations come up, letting them drift by as if they were clouds. There's no need to pick up any one thing or to focus on it in particular. And if we get pulled away, that's perfectly all right. We can just notice that and allow it to be and just move on. Now, mindful meditation can be a helpful activity just like mindful breathing. I typically encourage people to start with breathing and then move on to meditation because it can be a bit more of an involved practice. The mindful Hershey kiss is a really fun place to start and a fun activity. So if you're looking for something to do with another person, to experience together that present moment, a Hershey kiss is a great place to start. Going into a quiet place and taking that Hershey kiss and noticing it. What does it look like? What does it feel like? That foil on the outside with the ridges and bumps. What's that texture? Where is it smooth? Where is it soft? What's the temperature? And then smelling it. What is that scent that comes through? Noticing that even before you then start to slowly unwrap it. What does it sound like to unwrap it? How does that change the aroma? What is the sound of pulling out that little piece of paper? As you remove that kiss, notice how the smell becomes different, how then it feels in your hand, that smoothness of the chocolate. And after you notice these sensations, noticing what's present in your own body as it responds to that smell of chocolate, that anticipation of having chocolate. And only then, after you notice these things, putting it into your mouth. But don't chew and let it sit. Notice how your body responds to it. Notice how you might salivate more. Notice those flavors, how maybe even things start to smell a little different as that chocolate starts to fill up your mouth. And just letting it sit on your tongue as it dissolves. It takes about 5 minutes. So it's a bit of an involved process. But it's so much fun. And I find that when I do this, I'll have just one Hershey Kiss and that's enough. But if I just unwrap, pop it in my mouth and chew it up, I'll eat a whole bunch because they're tasty. So it's an opportunity to experience that flavor more intentionally. Mindful eating is a lot of fun. And I certainly don't do it with the same frequency that I do the breathing activities. But this is when we sit with an activity that maybe we rush through, maybe we watch TV, or maybe we check our phones while we're eating. And this is a way to kind of move into a different direction, a more intentional, present experience of this eating. So we want to move away from distractions, turn off our phones, maybe move away from other people, and we sit with our food and we notice it. We notice the colors, the smells, kind of what's present there, even before we start eating. We think about how each element of what's on our plate or in our bowl got to that place. Thinking about someone being out there in the world who planted a seed, who tended to the plant, who harvested it, who packaged it in some sort of manner that then it could be shipped, and that maybe then I went and got it from the store, where someone had packed it on a shelf or put it in a cooler. And then I had traveled home with it, and maybe I had stored it in my home, and then how I went through the process of preparing it, all to get this food here and now to this present experience where I get to partake in it. And this is all before we've even taken a bite. And after we go through that contemplative process, we then maybe take that first bite. We notice again those smells, the sensations of it being in our mouth, the sensation of chewing that and working through that and how our body responds to it. Maybe salivation, maybe a sense of fulfillment as we swallow and it starts to fill us up. Notice that with each bite. Notice how that sensation changes as we start to become full. How all of a sudden we don't feel the same response to that food. As I mentioned before, this is a much more involved experience. So it might not be something that we do every day, but doing it on occasion can really help slow us down. But all of these activities are about increasing our mindfulness, increasing our presence here in the present moment. And integrating this into our lives is an activity that each of us need to experiment with. So I encourage you to explore what of these activities fit you. What's the frequency that you want to shoot for? So what do you prefer to do? What fits in your existing schedule? And maybe think about linking this to an activity that you already engage in. Oftentimes I'll think about what are the hooks in my day? Those things that are stable, kind of stuck against the wall, so to speak. And that breakfast for me is always kind of a stable hook. I'm going to have breakfast. And when is breakfast going to occur? And then that gives me a sense of what are the things that I hang on to breakfast. So for me, I hang exercise before breakfast because it can sit there. Because then I know how to schedule that in. And my mindfulness practices are part of that morning routine. So I hang it there. Or maybe you hang it at lunch, or maybe dinner. Maybe you hang it at the end of the day when you're done with your job. Hang it there. But wherever you hang it, maybe experiment and explore what fits you, what practices are best at different times, and see if this is something that benefits your well-being. Maybe like me, you'll find that it's more helpful than you initially thought. Thanks so much.